Good morning. Today I decided to do a video on the history of the Hall of Distinguished Gentlemen, of which some of you are members, all elected unanimously. This glare off my glasses. Take it off. Anyway, the true story is 5,000 years ago, while the pyramids were being built, there was a young man selling beverages at the base of the pyramids. Some say his name was Simon, others say his name was, I've heard Bob, Bob the beverage guy. Anyway, hot tea wasn't going so well in the summer heat, and Bob noticed that everybody who was wearing sandals was constantly getting sand in between their toes and between the bottom of their feet and everything, and he said he must come up with a solution to this. Plus, he was broke. So the story goes he invented socks and started selling them at the base of the pyramids. The socks went over very well. Now, of course, at the time, they had this fine Egyptian cotton. But Bob was using papyrus at first. Eventually, the papyrus fell apart, so Bob went with the cotton. Became even more successful. Well, that's allegedly the history of the Hall of Distinguished Gentlemen. It came about supposedly because Bob started selling franchises to make socks. But there is another story. When I first come back to get better, and I'm going to use that phrase from now on because the recovery one, it's getting overused. So I came back to get better. And after a while, I met this fella, and he was like, I took right to him, good guy. And he called me up and asked me if I knew anybody that could speak for him. And when I suggested the name of this fella named Keith, he had no idea who he was. Now, Keith has gotten better for a long time, many, many years, and I was just surprised. I assumed everybody would know him. But anyway, I said, there's got to be some kind of different way besides these other fellowships for people to connect in some other manner. So that stewed in my brain for a while. So COVID hits. Can't go out, going out of my mind. I start jokingly doing things with the photographs, other people's photographs. And then I thought that maybe you could make a online, or whatever word they use now, fellowship. Like the Masons or the Knights of Columbus or anything. I see, I've known so many people over the years that belong to all those organizations, and not one person has ever thought that I was good enough to join them, okay? Not one. Not one, not anything you can think of, no. And I've known people that belong to everything, every kind of animal, eagles, elks. There's probably a vultures fellowship, or mice, or whatever. So I decided maybe I should make my own. And while I was doing that, Eric came up with the name, the Hall of the Distinguished Gentlemen. He said we should call it that. I said, that's awesome, fucking awesome. So, and as I started to do different things, Joe, who I sometimes call Red, even though he's kind of white now, said this could be a real thing. This could turn into a real thing. And I was like, okay, well, I have nothing better to do. Let's see what I can do. I don't even remember the first donation that Karen and I made, but we decided on socks. I don't know what it was. When I broke my back years ago, I stopped wearing socks. It hurt too much to bend over to put them on. So sometimes I'd go outside and And I don't ever check the weather. I look out the window and assume, well, it looks good. You know, as long as there's no cows, witches, or houses flying by, it should be all right. But, you know, you go out there sometimes and it's like, Jesus Christ, my feet are freezing. And I think I just kept on seeing a line of homeless people walking by. While they're invisible to a lot of people, they're not invisible to me. So I think we made our first donation to Father Bill's. I think that's what it was. They look kind of skeptical or whatever. I don't know. I guess nobody does that. But they just pick one item. I mean, Father Bill's has turned into one of those places where it's a write-a-check place. You know, you want to get rid of your guilt, write a check. You know, you want to brag to your family, write a check. The Vatican used to have that thing years ago. I can never remember what it was called, where people would write a check so they could get into heaven. And it turned into quite a scam for a long time. I know somebody out there probably remembers the name, but I don't remember right now. But it was basically, you could do whatever you wanted. Kill whoever you wanted. Murder whoever you wanted. Well, kill, murdered, whatever. Just be the nastiest person you can because you wrote a check and they gave you like a certificate, I think, that said, take it to heaven. So anyway, Father Bill's is building this massive mini mansion across the street from their old one. And right now I don't understand the logic because they're actually having less rooms, but they're having some other kind of housing in it. Anyway, let's get off that. So anyway, we donated and then Karen brought up the Dove, which is an organization that helps women. Basically, people have turned their life to shit for a long time. And Dove helps them out. And we broke off just from the socks and we donated some, women's products, items. Chapsticks was a big thing. Different things that, women could need. If a woman is watching this, you know what I'm talking about. So after a while, I started finding sites where I was finding the socks a lot cheaper. And I've got this one place now where I can get, at times, on their flash deals, 5 pairs of socks for 98 cents, and they're decent. They're not Hanes, they're not anybody else fancy things, but some of them I get them very colorful. I get them in men's and I get them in women's. That's the cheapest I think I've gotten them for. Like I said, like 5 pairs. There's various prices. And as I've mentioned before, we broke into underwear, donated some underwear, and recently I got a package yesterday that has some of them shorty nylon socky things. I don't know what you call them, but anyway. So that's kind of the real history of the haul. But the very first thing that struck me was, so when I first came back to get better, physically I was very sick. Mentally I was, whoa. Woo-hoo. Yeah. Birds chirping. Is that real? Is that like what is going on kind of thing? So it was determined while I was in the hospital that maybe I should go someplace else, and I did. And my sister Kathy still calls it your vacation down the Cape. So I went down there to a special place, and when I first came in, they had me sign all this paperwork. And you know how they say don't sign anything unless you read it? Well, if you don't have glasses, you can't read it. Or if you're like totally out there in Cuckoo City, I'm actually flying over the nest at this time. And I signed everything. And 4 days later, I was like, you know what? I think I'm done. I think I'm good. I think I can go home. And this very nice staff member says, well, you can't until they decide. I was like, they? Who's the infamous they? They has now come down to the Cape. So they brought me and they showed me that I committed myself. I had given away all my rights to people that I haven't even met, basically. And it was going to be up to them to decide when I was safe to go home. Oh my God. I was like stunned. I was stunned. I was like, seriously? I really remember, like for the next couple of days, thinking like, Billy, you've done some stupid things in your life, like really fucked up shit. And but this is it. This is your crowning achievement. So I was there for 33 days. It was quite an adjustment period. I kind of behaved like I normally do when I asked the question, why is the arts and crafts only one day a week? And I kind of pursued that for a while, like I do everything. And so they said, okay, all right, this is it. We'll open it up. I think it was 4 days. I turned it into 5. Anyway, they had a volunteer that would come down one day a week. And I said, what if I volunteer? They're like, well, you can't. I said, why not? I said, was this some kind of a breach of conduct or some weird thing? I was like, listen, I don't think anybody's going to attack me with a paintbrush. And if they do, they're like, will you calm down, calm down? Why is everybody telling me to calm down? The only time I ever talk like this is when I'm this tired. The rest of the time, it's I speak and I sound like a screeching seagull being strangled by the Gorton's fishermen. Anyway, they opened it up. I turned it into 5 because I would just go up and ask. I says, "Can you open up the arts and crafts room?" And they just would open it up. But anyway, a lot of the people enjoyed it more. I mean, what fucking day out of 7 do you get something to do other than go to meetings or talk about yourself? Or they'll ask you over and over again, why do you think you did it? Why do I think? Who the fuck was thinking when I did that? I know I was the only person in the room. I wasn't thinking of anything, or other foolish. Some of you may have heard some of these questions. Going into deep therapy. Real deep. Well, I've never taken a class in it. I've read a lot about psychology, psychiatry, the mind games, the tricks, the way they get you to talk and things. The philosophies, what they think causes people to do what they do when they're older. Some of it is so bizarre. I remember a sketch years ago on Saturday Night Live with Dan Aykroyd, and I think it was Lorraine Newman dressed as a little girl. What it was Sigmund Freud and his daughter Anna. And they go through this whole sketch that if you look it up, if it's on YouTube, you definitely could not air it today. Not in today's wokey woke environment. And by the way, don't call me sweetheart again. Anyway, at the end of the sketch, he says to her, Anna, sometimes a banana is just a banana. So anyway, so socks. So while I was in there, there's a lot of different personalities, let's say, was in there. Some very tragic. Some, like one kid, was like a sports kid for I don't know if it was New Bedford or Fall River or something, but he said something that somebody didn't like, and they packed him up and took him away to this place for a 24-hour thing. And it was getting on the supper time, and I just said to him, the kid wouldn't talk to anybody, anything. I think he had a sports jersey on. I said, it's time for supper. And he looked at me and said, dinner? And that he understood. And he started to say why he was in there, and I was like, don't worry about it. You'll be out in 24 hours, right? He's like, yeah, but I don't want anybody to find out about this. I said, don't worry about it. They will, and you'll get over it. There was a young girl in there that soon after her marriage had some kind of breakdown. She was only 20 years old. Then there was this kid that came in with this ponytail. Thank God Almighty, my sister Kathy was visiting that day. And she looked across the room and said, what's up with Game of Thrones over there? I swear to God, nobody understands our family. And I don't know what I don't know what it is with us, but I try to be nice sometimes. And, but when she said that, I was like, oh my God, I hope she doesn't go over and talk to him. Because she probably would. So anyway, what I'm getting to is this kid came in. He was like one day over 18, which meant he could come into our facility. If he was one day before 18, so he would have to go to a juvenile one. But he came in, he had no shoes. He had no socks. He had a pair of pants that belonged to somebody else at one time, and a ripped up t-shirt, and basically this is what he was wearing on the street. He had no fucking shoes. So there's a closet in the place where it has clothing. They don't want you to wear Johnny's. They want you to wear your own clothing. This kid didn't have any fucking clothing. Kid didn't have a home. This kid had been basically cut loose by everybody in his family. For good. I talked to him, later. So, my sister Frankie had brought me a sweatshirt that said Boston Strong on it. She brought me some socks, bought me some sweatpants, all brand new. God love her. And the package, 12 pairs of socks, some nice white cotton socks. And I went down to the staff because my socks were actually locked in the closet. And I said, can I give him some socks? And the staff looked at me like stunned. I said, I got a whole package in there and I don't need all of them. And the kid just kept looking at me, and it's that look when it's like somebody's offering you something, but they want something for it kind of thing, And I said to him, you want a pair of socks? How about 2? He said, okay. Because I don't have any shoes. Sorry, deep breath here. Hold on. So I said to him, yeah, but at least you got feet. And when I think of that footsteps in the sand thing, I always think of my grandmother. Mother, we called her Mrs. Fitz. I don't know why. I don't know why I associate that with her all the time, but I always do. I said, you at least get some feet. God's sakes, he had nothing. He had absolutely nothing. They hooked him up with some pants and a shirt. And he walked around telling everybody that at least he had some brand new socks. And he was showing them to people, What the fuck? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? And any of you been through it? And if you haven't, this kid was walking the streets of Hyannis, I think it was Hyannis or one of the neighboring towns, with no shoes, no socks, and somebody else's clothes that he probably picked out of the rubbish. But some people out there, the first thing they want to do is look at him and go, he's a drug addict. He's a thief. He's going to steal from my house. They don't think, maybe I got an extra pair of shoes in the house because I'm in Melda fucking Marcos or whatever, or Jesus Christ, maybe he's hungry. I mean, being Irish and 100%. I know the stories. I know how when people came over here because they were starving, they wanted a better life. They were finding them dead in the doorways of Boston. It is an actual thing. They were starving. They came over here and they starved. So what did they do? Did they resent it? Did they turn their hate towards people? No. They started relief associations. That's what they did. And to this day, they take care of everybody. The Irish Cultural Center teaches new immigrants here how to live here. It helps them out. And it doesn't matter what country they're from either. The KFCs, the nights were all started to help out people. You know. Again, like I said, nobody wanted me to join, so I made my own. But here's the thing I want to emphasize. They're not invisible. Open your eyes. If you see people walking down the sidewalk, most likely it's them because they're walking. They might have garbage bags. They might have supermarket bags. One of the things I just started buying off of this company when they have their sales is duffel bags. It costs a couple of bucks. If I raise up some money, I'd like to buy like a dozen of them, you know, and just so it looks decent. So they have somewhere to put their stuff during the day. You know what I mean? I might buy them in bright red, and that way, if you're driving down the streets of Quincy or Boston or wherever, and you see somebody with a bright red duffel bag, they won't be invisible to you anymore. So come on, let's cut the shit. Is your brother a responsibility? Yeah. Yeah. Let's not get all like psychological and everything and discuss that thing. Is he? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. From the day you were born. And I don't mean your sibling. He's very much your responsibility. I mean the people out in the street here, the other people. Are they your responsibility? Yeah, they fucking are. So smarten up. Sorry, I got mean there for a minute. I'll try to be nice now. Hi, can you all help? I wish you could. Doesn't that sound really creepy? Yeah. My last initiative I suggested was that anybody within earshot, eyeshot, or any of these videos, you get a bonus. You get like, I don't know, if gas prices drop. I don't know. You don't buy that gallon of Haagen-Dazs or Ben & Jerry's. It's enough to buy a package of socks. And if you drop it off at almost any church, they'll take them. Church, homeless shelter, any way you feel comfortable doing it. Okay? It doesn't cost that much. You think about that when you go back to your hybrid or whatever SUV you have. By the way, stop buying SUVs. Don't you people know if you get T-boned in them, they roll over like an Easter egg? Just watch it. Watch any shows on TV. You know, they have a horrible wheelbase. That's the whole problem. They try to give you like a mini truck. They put it on like a Kia wheelbase kind of thing, and that's why they roll over. You know. Anyway, I'm always going off the hook here. It doesn't take that much. It really doesn't take that much. It really doesn't. It really doesn't take that much. And a lot of this I get from my parents, my grandmother. That my grandmother was hilarious because it didn't matter if it was June or January. She always had like a heavy winter coat on. Outside, she had her kerchief, and she used to sit on the stairs on the top step of her house at 6 Gate Street in South Boston, and she'd hold court there. She was like, not the queen, but I'd say the empress of the street, sort of. Now, she was in her 60s when I was born. She was 80 when she died. So that 20 years in between, I got to witness how this woman sat there and everybody had to stop and talk to her. It was like it was a rule. Okay, maybe they were being polite, but everybody had to stop by and talk to her. Hello, Mrs. Fitz, how are you? Oh, good, dear. You know how it is. You know. And sometimes she would sing, in this kind of higher pitched voice. And apparently she played piano, and they had a piano in the house long gone while I came around. But her voice was hilarious because I wonder if anybody ever told her that she really couldn't sing that well. But I loved hearing it. I sometimes remember some of the songs that she sang. But I don't know. I remember as a little kid, there was this thing, and apparently it was only in our family, and it came from my great-grandmother. So this guy was walking down the street, and he reached down, and apparently his drawers were stuck in his bum. Drawers are underwear, bum is your butt. I'm sure you know that. But anyway, so he was pulling them out, and my grandmother says, oh, he's going to the movies. And I'm like, oh, he's going to the movies? She says, yeah, going to the movies. Well, she had to explain it. I guess one time when she was much, much, much younger, she was out somewhere with her mother, or it might have been out in front of the house because that's where they spent a lot of their time. And a fellow was walking by, and he was walking in the direction of Broadway, which was where the movie theater was. And she said to her mother, something about, what's that man doing over there? She goes, oh, don't worry about him. He's going to the movies. So somehow that stuck, and that was a phrase that in our family we used. If you got caught pulling your drawers out of your bum, then you're going to the movies. I don't honestly get it. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. There was just different things I remember growing up, and people would say there was just another language there growing up. Just so many different things, and I always didn't know what people were talking about. But anyway, if I think of other things later, I'll let you know. There was one other story that somebody told me. Oh, my grandmother, of course, told me this. So her husband passed away some years back, and my father's father, mother was my mother's mother. So my father's father walked around the corner one day. He lived on the other side of the hill, on Linden Street. And he was talking to my grandmother, and he says, I noticed your fence is broken here. She goes, yeah, in time, whatever. And she never had the money to fix anything. So anyway, he left, and then sometime later he came back, and she said he came back holding the biggest piece of wood in his shoulder that she'd ever seen. And he had some tools. And as he talked to her, he fixed her fence. She never asked. He never offered. He just did it. Because that's what you're supposed to do. And he fixed her fence. There's some photographs of 6 Gate Street over the years. And there's been multiple fences on it. And also handrails on the multiple stairs. And originally the house had the wrought iron handrails where it's circular. And I guess the fence was like that too in the front yard. It was a tiny little yard where you could just plant a few flowers. Or we buried our animals there, our gerbils, turtles, whatever we had. It was really small. You can go by and visit it today. The granite blocks that formed the yard are still there, but apparently had the wrought iron fences. And I guess they were up and down the street. That whole neighborhood was a mismatch of different styles of buildings, like so many different, because they didn't build like 6 houses in a row like they did in some parts of Southie. Like if you go down East State Street right after Old Harbor, there's like 6 houses right in a row. They're all connected and identical. I think I mentioned that before. I'll tend to repeat myself. But anyway, her house was a double house. The house that connected was like a mirror image. So anyway, like the house I grew up in, which is 2 condos now, I think. Her house is 3, which is a shame. It really is a shame. Beautiful house. But anyway, all right, I'm going to end here. Because you really can't see much. My face looks brown or something. I don't know, ever since I got that bag of liquid iron, I've been changing colors. Like a chameleon, a human chameleon. That was probably gross. But sorry, I don't edit things because I don't care to. I can probably figure it out. Anyway, I might try to have some toast or something. But I haven't eaten much lately. So anyway, yeah, I'll leave it off for now. I hope this wasn't too depressing for you. I'll try to come up with some funnier stuff at another time. I've got some green stuff growing in the house right now. There's something growing out of Mike's head. But I don't know what it is because I never wrote down what I planted like a month ago. Because I'm really organized like that. Yeah. Okay. All right, take care. Carry on.